This again, it's a recording, and I am here to present Thang Phan, everyone. Um, he is a senior in computer science as a transfer student and a transfer student from Orange Coast College. He was a past research intern at NASA and a past web designer at Steven Enterprises. He's a founder of two funded student-led startups at UCSD and a founder of new professional development organization at UCSD, the Triton LinkedIn group. So if anyone comes in, anyone else has any questions, please put it in the chat on your right and make sure that it says session. All right, so Tang, take it away.
Awesome. Yeah. So thank you for the really good introduction, Martha. So yeah, a little bit about myself. I actually came from a community college before coming to UCSD, and there's a lot of course, mixed opinions about community college. And I would say the reason for that is because of just like people don't really know like what community college is or like what's the benefits or kind of like downsides of it. Just a little bit more background in high school. I would say I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew that I liked math, but I was kind of like a little lost in terms of my what I wanted to study, what my career was, and whatnot. And in terms of just kind of like my academic performance, I wasn't really like the best student. Like I said, I was always like a little bit lost. I wasn't really involved in a lot of activities. And yeah, so it really got me in my senior year, kind of like almost last minute, I decided to apply to community college. And I still applied to UCs, but my mind was mainly set on community college. And when I decided on that, I kind of then invested more research in terms of just learning about what community college is all about, right? And as a high schooler, my understanding was community college is essentially a path to go that if you didn't have like the right academic if you didn't have like a stellar academic record, or if you didn't really know what you wanted to do, then going to community college was like a way for you to kind of essentially get like another chance to kind of like go to a four-year university like afterwards, right? So after going to community college, my perception on community college really changed, right? It was kind of like
Mm,
it was as a person who was like in the environment of the community college, as well as like kind of just like hearing about like what people thought of it in high school. A lot of people thought like community college was like, oh yeah, if you didn't get into a four-year, then you go to a community college. But when I went there, it was a really kind of like wrong misconception because
mm,
a lot of people who were there, you would like at any community college come from like a variety of backgrounds, right? Some people go to community college because of like they don't have enough money to pay for like a four-year university. They go there because kind of like me, the academic record wasn't the best. They don't know what they want to do, or just
mm,
because a lot of people just want to change the career path. And that really was a good thing in terms of like there community college consisted of a lot of like diverse individuals with like different backgrounds. Like I
mhm,
friends and kind of classmates that ranged from literally like 15 years old all the way up to like 40 year olds. And it was a really good environment because you really got to learn about kind of like everybody's backgrounds and like why they're there. You really learn about everybody's stories, and it was a great experience at community college. And going a little bit into more about kind of like academics. So, like I said, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I wanted to do computer science, right? Because it was related a lot to kind of like I thought it was related a lot to like math, and I thought it was like pretty cool, like creating like software and whatnot.
mm,
So coming into community college, I took some entry level CS classes, and that goes on to another point that community college is the perfect way to kind of learn about like what you want to do, right? Like the good thing about I wouldn't say yeah, I would say it's a good thing. Like compared to like a four-year university, you get since it's cheaper at a community college, you won't really have that much like financial burden if you like decide
mm,
which majors or not. So community college really allows you to take different classes in different fields to really find out truly what you want to do. And kind of self-explanatory, that's a good thing. It's because it's like you obviously want to find out like what you really want to do because that's something you'll be studying for like 4 years, then getting like a career
mm,
and whatnot. And you can still do the same thing in a four-year university. It's just a little harder because it's like more expensive. It's harder to get into classes, and then there's like a lot of obligations you have to do and whatnot. especially if you want to like stay longer, like because most of the time when you switch majors at like a 4 year college, you have to stay at the college longer, right? And of course, it's like you don't have to just pay for more tuition; you have to pay for like more room and board, more fees and whatnot. But at a community college, most of the time you go to a community college like next to your house, so it's literally like it's like a 10-20 minute drive, and then it's significantly cheap. You all probably know kind of like that community college is way cheaper. And when I say way cheaper, it's extremely cheaper. Like just for some like monetary comparisons, I believe 1 year at my community college costs around like $2,000, and I was taking like a lot of classes as well. 1 year at UCSD, I believe if you take a full kind of schedule, is around like $15,000. Plus, you have to pay for room and board fees and whatnot. And that can really add up almost like to $30,000-$40,000 a year. And if you don't get any kind of like financial aid or like scholarships or grants, you or your parents will have to like pay that out of pocket. And compared to only like $2,000 at community college, it's an option that you can't really go wrong with.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So that's kind of like my one of some of like the reasons I decided to apply to community college and like why I chose to do computer science in particular. And
Mm.
um, yeah, Martha, I believe you had like a few more questions you kind of wanted me to like answer related to my experiences. Okay, I think Martha cut out, but so I'll just talk a little bit more in depth about kind of like my community college experience. So going there, staying, being involved. Oh, sorry, Martha, I think you cut off for a little bit.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
So sorry, you were saying a little bit. You keep talking.
Yeah, I was just talking about kind of like my academic experiences.
Mhm.
It was honestly great because there's also another misconception where it's like the quality of education you get at a
Mm.
community college is actually less than university.
Mm.
Most people are surprised is because it's like this is I want to say that this is from my experiences and talking to like other professors, but the community college to become a community college professor is actually a pretty rigorous process, like more than most people think. Like a lot of my professors at Orange Coast College were actually professors from neighboring four-year universities such as like Chapman, UCR, Cal State Long Beach, and they were all of very, very good quality too. So in
Mhm.
terms of the quality of education, you can really get kind of like that same level, and it was great. And going on to that topic is that normally at a community college too, my classes were way smaller. Like
Mm.
speaking from experiences, like my computer science classes, not even exaggerating, are between 100 to 300 people per kind of class. In community college, most of them are like capped at like 30 or even like 20 students. So you really get more kind of like personalized attention kind of like from the professors. And like I said, the professors are extremely qualified. They not only do they come from kind of like other universities, like prestigious universities. Most of them are kind of like work as community college professors part time, and they work in like the actual industry as well. So, for example, some of my computer science professors they worked as actual software engineers, and they
Mm.
um, taught my classes part time. So you really able to get really good insight on kind of like what it's like in industry. Because most of the
Mm.
time at universities, the professors are kind of like doing like research or are a professor full time, which is great, right? But at a community college, you kind of get the perspective of like, both sides of the spectrum. So I thought that
Mhm.
was like in terms of the quality of education, my like the classes that I took were almost in comparable quality to kind of like the same classes I take at UCSD.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. Like, I'm also a transfer student for those who don't know, and I would totally back up what Tang was saying about like not only the monetary aspect where it's completely cheaper, but also the fact that you won't take longer. Like, it's still 4 years, 2 years at a community college. You can totally transfer to another 2 years for 4 year college to focus on your own major, right? And that is exactly what you did, Tang, right? Like you just did your GEs, you took some courses at for computer science, and it was so easy for you to transfer it to UCSD. Um, yeah, so like, what do you think? Like, if the students should decide to go to community college, what do you think they should keep in mind as they go through? What else should they take advantage of at a community college?
Definitely. So when you go to community college, I'd say is and or even a 4 year university is having the mindset, right? It's like I I came in like in the beginning, right? When I knew I went to community college, I was a little bit kind of like I wouldn't say disappointed, but I was a little kind of like sad, right? Because I saw
Mm.
all my getting to all these like super cool universities and stuff like that. But just remember that your journey is your journey only. If your friend goes to like Harvard, for example, it doesn't affect you, right? And you don't affect their journey too. So going to community college, you got to have the right mindset that you're
Mm-hmm.
there to make the most of it. And that kind of goes on to my second point is utilize all the resources that are there available to you because you'll be surprised community colleges do have a lot of resources. Obviously, it's not as much as like a foreign university, but there are tons of resources. For example, my community college had a really strong presence in student government. We had a really big student government, right? So
Mm-hmm.
person who was almost kind of like an introvert in high school, I never thought I'd join kind of student government, but I took the chance, was able to become a student senator for my community college, and it was a great experience because I got to network with professors, administrators, and other like-minded students as well too. In addition to, I would say the best resource you can take advantage at your community college is your professors yourself. Because,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, your professors are from like four-year universities. They come from like industry jobs as well too, and they most likely, since they're teaching as a professor, they too most likely went to like a four-year university and even like grad school too. So I would
Mm-hmm.
definitely take advantage of just like getting to know a little bit your professors better and just asking advice because from my experience the professors at community college, and I went to three community colleges just because it's like I took classes from like each different one, mainly most of them at Orange Coast College, but almost all the professors always wanted to help students because they know students are trying to like go to like a four-year university, so they help as much as possible too. So definitely utilizing your professors, any on-campus resources,
Mm-hmm.
and I give an example of like being involved with student government, but be involved with any other club you think can be fit. Like if you're interested in kind of like music, join the music club. If you're interested in kind of like business, join kind of like the business club. Me myself, I was mainly involved with student government, but I also was involved with, I believe, I forgot what, oh, it was called the investment club, where it was just kind of like a group of students who talked about stocks every week. And yeah, it's because when you involve yourself with these clubs, even though you might not think it's beneficial to like your academics or and transferring, you'd be surprised because like just through meeting other like-minded students, you guys like work on things together. You guys can work on like projects and whatnot. And it's just good to like sometimes surround yourself by students who share your interests too, because you guys can really like get along and network and all that good stuff, right? And also, I was also involved with like math, the math club where it was just kind of like we competed in math competitions. That was
Mm-hmm.
also a really good experience because we got like connections with kind of like the math professors who gave us like really good advice on like transferring and whatnot. But yeah, so there's resources at community college more than what most people think. So definitely when you go there, be on the lookout.
Mm-hmm.
Um, most community college too, including like universities, they send out like newsletters of opportunities. So be sure to always check your email, check like the school website for any opportunities you see kind of like coming up.
Yeah, and I think I do want to add to that, as in like, you gotta understand as well, like a lot of the students have to struggle with the idea of have to go to university, right? And definitely like what Tang was saying, like how there's so many resources at a community college, and especially now that we're living in a pandemic, it's just really hard for us to think that students like that are coming out of high school, they still have to take classes at home, and they still have to pay for those thousands of dollars. And sometimes it's easier to go through the community college and like have those experience, have that one-on-one with a professor, just like how Dan was saying, and like experiences those resources that a community college can really give, as we're transitioning out of a pandemic, and you can also transition into the fourth year college. Uh,
I think I knew kind of like where she was going with her question is how did I kind of like transition from like the community college all the way to university? And I would say for me, it wasn't that hard because just kind of like my study habits was very like fast paced. So adjusting from kind of like the 16-week semester system to the 10 quarter system was actually better for me because I like to kind of like I wouldn't say cram, but I like to do like things like really fast paced. So for me, it wasn't that much of an issue. But definitely, I know that some of my other colleagues kind of struggled a little. And my biggest advice for that is when you go into a four-year university, don't take like a bunch of classes involved with yourself, a lot of activities like right at the beginning, right? It's because like going into a four-year university is a completely different environment than what you would at like a community college, right? So since you don't have experience with it, I would definitely recommend kind of just like taking only like maybe like 3 or 4 classes, involving yourself for like 1 or 2 activities, and then once you get really like used to kind of the environment at a four-year university, then you can start adding on more activities and whatnot. But and yeah, that's kind of my experience with transitioning from kind of like a 10 week of the 16-week semester system at Orange Coast College to the 10-week system at UCSD. And yeah, it wasn't that bad for me, but like I said, for most people, you just gotta like don't do too many things your first quarter or semester at like your university. Take it kind of easy, and then from there, once you get used to it, you can start doing kind of like more activities. But yeah, and there's also another point I wanted to address, kind of like what I was saying earlier with the opportunities, is that me, for example, my getting an internship at NASA and an opportunity as a web designer, I actually got at community college, and the NASA internship was actually through a professor because he partnered with the NASA JPL Center to offer internships specifically just for community college students. So that was like an amazing resource that me and a few other of my community college colleagues was able to kind of like utilize. But yeah, so definitely just talk to professors, check online, check the newsletters to see what opportunities there are for at a community college, because there honestly are a lot. And then in terms of getting the web designer position, I actually found it through my community college's job portal too. So that's an example of like being able to offer resources. But yeah, so definitely I'd say utilize all the resources you can at a community college because there honestly are a lot. But yeah, so I know there's a few more minutes, and I know Martha disconnected, but so I'll talk a little bit more about my kind of experiences, and yeah, so that was just I know I just kind of recapped all about kind of like my journey for community college and my experience. I would. Oh, hi, Min. Thanks for being able to come. But yeah, I believe Martha disconnected, so I'm just kind of like going into more depth about like kind of like my experiences and whatnot.
All right, cool. So I see that we got a couple of folks viewing in your session. What would be the key takeaway you think you tell folks to, like, say they want to be a computer scientist, but they don't have, like, they didn't get into like a UC system.
Mhm. Definitely, yeah. So, say the biggest takeaway is be open to community college, because I know, like, as a high schooler myself, and I have like siblings who are in high school too. There's sometimes a negative connotation around community college, but as mentioned before, there's just so many different resources, and it's a great path because unlike a four-year university where sometimes you have to be a little bit rushed to like take a lot of classes and like complete your degree, there's a lot of flexibility at a community college. And also, just on that note too, it really doesn't matter like if you go into like a four-year right away, if you go into community college, or it kind of like it doesn't even matter what college you go to, as long as you're in there to kind of just like learn and just like utilize all the resources you can.
Mm-hmm.
College is kind of like a great experience too. So yeah, I would definitely say like I wouldn't be the person who I am today if I didn't go to community college, mainly just because all like the lessons I've learned, all the people I was able to interact with, all the one-on-ones I had with professors. So yeah, I'd say definitely like my biggest takeaway is like be open to community college, right? Even if you get into like a four-year university, I would definitely say still keep community college as an option. Like I actually had a friend who got into I believe I believe it wasn't mathematics, but it was I believe for like another STEM field. She got into MIT, she got into UCLA and a few Ivy Leagues, but she didn't know what to do. And she also had the same kind of like she had the right mindset in terms of like she didn't know what to want to do, so she wanted to explore what she wanted to do. So she decided to go to community college, and she really found out that she had a love for biology and wanted to become a doctor. And now she's up at UCLA right now pursuing her dream, right? So she went into like one of those four-year universities out of high school, she might have never found out that being a doctor was kind of like her dream career. But yeah, definitely those are a few key takeaways I have.
Yeah.